The wind howled across the prairie like a wounded beast, tearing through the open plains and slamming against the wooden walls of Daniel, Hart's old ranch. The sky was an ocean of dark, furious clouds lit by flashes of lightning that split the heavens apart. Daniel had weathered many storms before, but not one like this. This one carried a voice of fury that made the air itself tremble. He worked quickly, securing his horses and shutting the barn doors as the rain began to pour, cold and sharp as needles. Just as he was about to head back inside, he heard something, faint, desperate, a cry carried by the storm. At first, he thought it was just the wind, but then it came again, soft but unmistakable, a child's cry. He froze. No one should have been out there in that weather. Lantern in hand, coat whipping in the wind, he stepped into the chaos. "Hello?" he shouted. "Is anyone out there?" Lightning flashed, and for a moment, he saw it. A small figure stumbling near the creek, half collapsed in the mud. Without a second thought, Daniel ran, boots sinking into the wet ground. The closer he got, the clearer it became. A little girl, drenched and trembling, her eyes wide with terror. "It's all right," Daniel said, dropping to his knees beside her, shielding her from the rain with his coat. "You're safe now." She was too cold to speak, so he scooped her up and carried her back through the storm, fighting the wind every step. Inside, he laid her by the fire, wrapped her in blankets and brewed a bit of hot tea. Slowly, color began to return to her cheeks. When she finally spoke, her voice was barely a whisper. "My name is Ayana." Daniel frowned. It wasn't a name he'd heard often. It belonged to the people beyond the river, the tribes who rarely came this far into rancher land. "Where's your family?" he asked gently. She looked down. "Gone, the river took them." Daniel's heart clenched. He'd seen floods like that before. Whole camps swept away in moments. He said nothing more, only stoked the fire and sat beside her until she fell asleep. Outside, the storm raged. But inside, a strange peace settled over the small cabin. By dawn, the world was still. The storm had passed, leaving the earth soaked and the air heavy with silence. Daniel stepped outside to check the damage. Half the barn roof was gone. Fences down, but at least they were alive. He turned to find the girl standing in the doorway, blanket wrapped tight around her. "You're safe now," he said softly. "You can rest here until we figure something out." She just nodded quietly. Hours later, while repairing the fence, Daniel felt it in a faint vibration in the ground. At first, he thought it was thunder again, but the sky was clear. Then the sound grew, rhythmic, powerful, like 1,000 heartbeats merging into one. Hoofbeats. He turned toward the horizon, and his blood ran cold. Over the ridge, a vast line of riders appeared, stretching as far as he could see. Warriors, spears, rifles, painted faces, horses kicking up clouds of dust. 400 of them, maybe more, sweeping down like a tide. The girl gasped. "My people," she whispered. Daniel's pulse quickened. He stepped in front of her protectively as the riders encircled his ranch. The air filled with the sound of horses snorting and saddles creaking. Not a word was spoken. The circle closed tight around him, one man standing alone before hundreds. Then a single rider came forward, tall, broad, with feathers woven in his hair and a scar down his cheek. His gaze burned like fire. He dismounted slowly, each step deliberate. When he spoke, his voice rolled like thunder. "You sheltered my daughter." Daniel straightened. "I did," he said. "She was alone in the storm. I couldn't leave her out there." The warrior's eyes flicked to Ayana. She stepped forward, her small voice trembling. "He saved me, Father." The man, Chief Tohani, looked at her for a long moment, the hardness in his eyes softening before he turned back to Daniel. "Few would do such a thing," he said. "Fewer still for one not of their blood." "I didn't think about blood," Daniel replied quietly. "Just about what was right." A murmur passed through the ranks. One younger warrior broke formation, shouting, "He lies! The white men always lie. He took her for ransom." The circle tightened. Daniel didn't flinch. "You can search my house," he said calmly. "You'll find nothing but a blanket and a cup of tea." The chief raised his hand, silencing his men. His eyes were sharp, measuring. "You risked much by taking her in," he said. "Why?" Daniel shrugged. "Because someone had to." Tohani stared at him for a long, silent moment. Then slowly he nodded. "You speak truth." He motioned for Ayana. She walked to her father and took his hand, tears glistening in her eyes. "He saved me, Father. The river was cold. The storm was loud. But he made it stop. The crowd murmured again, this time not in anger but in respect. The chief's expression softened. He turned back to Daniel. You have done what many men would not. You have shown heart. Daniel's voice was quiet but firm. Didn't do it for thanks. Just couldn't let a child die. The chief gave a faint smile. Then you have earned more than gratitude. You have earned peace. He turned to his warriors. No harm will come to this man. He is under our protection. The air shifted. The tension that had filled the valley broke like a wave. Warriors lowered their rifles. Horses relaxed. Even the wind seemed to sigh in relief. Chief Tohani stepped closer and extended his hand. Daniel hesitated only a second before shaking it, a gesture that bridged two worlds, long divided by fear and misunderstanding. A man who saves a child, Tohani said, saves the spirit of his people. Should the storm come again, you will not face it alone. That night, hundreds of fires burned on the ridges around Daniel's ranch. The warriors camped nearby not as enemies, but as silent guardians. Their drums echoed softly through the valley, not the rhythm of war, but a song of gratitude. Daniel sat on his porch watching the stars return. Ayana sat beside him, her small hand clutching his arm. You'll go home tomorrow, he said. Back to your father. She nodded, though sadness lingered in her eyes. Will I see you again? Daniel smiled faintly. Maybe. The world has a way of bringing people together when it needs to. When dawn broke, the warriors prepared to leave. Chief Tohani approached once more, his presence commanding even in silence. You have our respect, Daniel Hart, he said. If ever the storm returns, and we will come. Daniel nodded. Keep her safe. The chief's eyes softened. Always. As the warriors rode off, dust rose in the golden morning light, and the sound of their hoofbeats faded into the distance. Daniel watched until the last rider vanished. The land felt different now, calmer, kinder. That evening, the wind swept gently through the grass. Daniel sat by his fire, listening to the soft hum of the world. He looked toward the horizon where the warriors had gone, and a faint smile touched his lips. Funny thing, he murmured. Sometimes the storms that scare us most are the ones that bring the right people to our door. The fire crackled softly. The air was peaceful. Daniel raised his cup in a quiet toast. To the girl, to the storm, and to the 400 warriors who had turned fear into friendship. Then he looked up, speaking softly as though to someone sitting just beyond the firelight. To those listening, watching, feeling the story settle in their hearts. If this story touched you, he said, don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Because out here, every storm carries another story. And every story reminds us that courage, kindness, and faith still live in the hearts of good people. Stay with us. There's more coming.